Are you looking for the best cheap 5G phones? In this video, we will look at some of the 5 best cheap 5G phones on the market. Before we get started with our video, we have included links in the description. So make sure you check those out to see which one is in your budget range. Starting at number 1. Apple iPhone SE 2022. Best cheap 5G phone from Apple. Tech specs, price, $429, display, 4.7 inches, CPU, a 15 bionic chip, RAM, 3 GB, internal storage, 64GB/128GB/256GB, rear camera, 12MP rear f/1.8 wide front camera, 7MP f/2.2 camera, weight, 144G, dust/water resistance, IP67. Apple was arguably a bit late to the 5G game, at least compared to some of its Android counterparts. While it's been a couple of years since the company introduced the latest networking protocol to its flagship line, it's only now brought the technology to its more budget-friendly iPhone SE line with the device's third edition. The smartphone's $420 starting price makes it easily the cheapest 5G option for iPhone fans. However, as we've covered previously, the third-gen iPhone SE does not support mmWave 5G services, nor does it support the 3.45 GHz band that AT&T plans to use for its future 5G proliferation. This means that the top-end speeds users can experience will be limited significantly if they are in areas where the only 5G available is of the mmWave of 3.45 GHz variety. That said, the iPhone SE does support other C-band-based 5G services on Verizon and T-Mobile, meaning it still has the chance to experience ample speed increases when compared to its LTE-only predecessor. The reduced cost of the latest iPhone SE does come with the potential FOMO iPhone 13 and iPhone 14 owners could avoid. But, the extra money in your pocket may be more than enough of a benefit to ignore the potentially moot issue of 5G band support. Number 2. Google Pixel 6a. Best cheap 5G phone from Google. Tech specs, price, $330, display, 6.1 inches, CPU, Google Tensor RAM, 6 GB, storage, 128 GB, rear cameras, 12MP wide, 12MP ultra-wide front camera, 8MP, weight, 178G, dust/water resistance, IP67. While many would argue that Google's just started to find its groove in the flagship smartphone segment, its affordable Pixel A range has always delivered killer value propositions. The latest from the company, the Pixel 6a, is no different. For one, the device retains the essence of Google's new camera bar design, as seen on the Pixel 6 and Pixel 7 series. That means that even if you're paying significantly less for the 6a, $449, you aren't necessarily settling for an inferior design. That sentiment holds true with the heart and soul of the Pixel, its Android 13 software. With Pixel smartphones, especially the more modern ones, you can expect consistent security and feature updates for years down the road. That reason alone may sway you to the Pixel 6a over our other top picks on the list. Znet's Jason Cipriani tested the Pixel 6a earlier this year and found the camera performance admirable, especially for a $449 phone. While the device lacks the telephoto sensor of its Pro siblings, you can still expect a well-colored, naturally sharp output thanks to Google's computational chops. Number 3. OnePlus Nord N20 5G. Best cheap 5G phone for T-Mobile users. Tech specs, price, $296, display, 6.43 inches, 60Hz AMOLED CPU, Qualcomm Snapdragon 695 5G, RAM, 6 GB, internal storage, 128 GB, rear cameras, 64MP rear f/1.8 wide, 2MP f/2.4 macro, and 2MP f/2.4 depth front camera, 16MP f/2.4 weight, 173G, dust/water resistance, none. The OnePlus Nord N20 5G comes from the company's mid-range Nord line of devices. Although OnePlus' first few generations stuck exclusively to the concept of making smartphones that could compete with big-name flagships at mid-range prices, the company's more recent offerings have grown well into the premium smartphone price range. With the Nord N20 5G, OnePlus has returned to its roots of churning out exceptional phones for a fraction of the cost of flagships. Surprisingly, the $296 Nord N20 5G comes reasonably close to its $899 sibling, the OnePlus 10 Pro. Some hardware similarities include the screen size and resolution, albeit at a lower 60Hz refresh rate, a Qualcomm Snapdragon series chipset, and a very similar front-facing camera. Visually, you won't find a sub-$300 phone that beats the Nord N20 5G, given its thinness and matte textured body. The 6.34-inch AMOLED panel is also a tier above its LCD-dominant competition, delivering sharper and more color-accurate imagery. And when you need a top-up, the Nord N20 5G is bundled with a 33W charging brick to give you a day's power in just 45 minutes. Number 4. Samsung Galaxy A13. Best cheap 5G phone under $250. Tech specs, price, $249, display, 6.5 inches, 720x 1600 pixel resolution, 90Hz LCD CPU, MediaTek Dimensity 700 RAM, 4GB, internal storage, 64GB, rear cameras, 50MP rear f/1.8 wide, 2MP f/2.4 macro, and 2MP f/2.4 depth front camera, 5MP f/2.0 camera weight, 195G, dust/water resistance, none. It wasn't too long ago that 5G was a feature that could only be had in the best and brightest flagships from the leading smartphone manufacturers. Now, things have reached the point where the latest generation of connectivity is coming to devices that are almost as cheap as phones were back in the halcyon days of carrier-subsidized $200 flagships. These aren't from no-name makers, or from Chinese smartphone brands that may or may not lose access to Google Play at any moment from rising political tensions, either. The Galaxy A13 is Samsung's best crack yet at retaining 5G functionality while reaching down into the bargain basement pricing tier. It's part of the same line as the also excellent, though quite a bit pricier, A51 on this list. Of course, that price difference shows itself in their respective spec lists, with the worst of the concessions found in the A13 likely being its mediocre CPU, display resolution, and last-gen front-facing camera. Still, if getting into the 5G game is your main goal, and your budget is tight, the A13 provides a shockingly low entry point from one of the most popular smartphone makers in the world. Number 5. Motorola One 5G Ace. Best cheap 5G phone with a big screen. Tech specs, price, $168, display, 6.7 inches, 2400x 1080 pixel resolution, LCD CPU, Snapdragon 750G RAM, 6GB, internal storage, 128GB, rear cameras, 48MP rear f/1.7 wide, 8MP f/2.2 ultra wide, and 2MP f/2.4 macro front camera, 16MP f/2.2 camera weight, 212G dust/water resistance, not applicable. Motorola One 5G Ace builds on the Motorola One 5G with an original MSRP of under $200. You can even find ones going for less than $300 right now. Motorola, owned by Lenovo, has a full range of value devices, but this mid-range smartphone is compelling. Simply put, it's a good value for the money and the 6.7-inch display feels good in one hand. The camera system, 3 cameras on the back and a selfie in the front is solid in my tests. There are some areas where Motorola cut corners, from the plastic backing to the lack of a certified water and dust resistance rating, but overall, the device feels like a flagship at a fraction of the cost. One key item here is that the Motorola One 5G has 6GB of memory with 128GB of storage and microSD card support of up to 1TB. Typically, budget phones scrimp on storage and memory. The microSD card support in Motorola One 5G Ace allows you to bulk up a bit if necessary. Motorola's approach to Android rhymes with Google's stock version of the operating system. A 48MP camera and a solid display round out the Motorola One 5G Ace perks, and for its price, the device makes for a solid everyday smartphone.